scorching summer day in the small town of Amberfield, Kentucky, had just passed noon. Michael Winston, a Marine Corps veteran, had driven over 500 miles in the past few days, heading to visit friends in another state. His old-fashioned truck was starting to hum, as if asking for a break. Spotting a roadside diner sign, Michael decided to make a short stop. The place was unremarkable. A run-down parking lot, a few tables, and an old hot dog van by the roadside. But it looked quiet enough to grab a coffee and give himself a little rest. Michael got out of the truck, adjusted his cap, and glanced around. The scorching air immediately hit his face, reminding him of countless days spent in the desert during his service. A light breeze brought little relief, and he instinctively reached for a bottle of water. Suddenly, something on the parking lot caught his attention. A little black girl, around 8 or 9, and an elderly white man standing by a soda machine. There was something unnatural about their posture. The girl was noticeably tense, her hands fidgeting with the edge of an old t-shirt, her eyes darting around like someone looking for an escape. The man, tall, with a small belly and slicked back gray hair, seemed much calmer. He stood leaning against the machine, staring straight ahead as if oblivious to everything. Yet Michael couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. His instincts, honed over years of service, kicked in. His military training taught him to notice small details that could save lives, and right now, he felt a familiar tension in the air. After hesitating for a moment, Michael entered the diner. Inside, the atmosphere was quiet and peaceful. A couple of truckers sat at the counter, lazily discussing their route, and an elderly woman sipped coffee alone at a corner table. Aside from the soft sounds of the radio, the place was pretty quiet. Michael ordered coffee and sat at a window table where he could still watch the scene outside. The girl and the man were still standing by the soda machine. She was making odd hand gestures, barely noticeable to a casual observer. At one point, Michael caught a quick motion of her fingers, and his heart stopped. It was an international SOS signal. The girl raised her hand and made the gesture again, as if testing whether someone would notice. Michael gripped his coffee cup harder than he intended. The thought raced through his mind. Something is wrong. This girl is in danger. But what exactly was going on, he couldn't immediately tell. He knew that acting impulsively in situations like this could make things worse and put the girl in even more danger. Still, his duty as a citizen and a former soldier wouldn't allow him to just sit and do nothing. He took another sip of coffee, trying to stay calm. He continued to observe, pretending to enjoy his drink. The girl still looked tense. The man, who she presumably called her father, occasionally shot her strange, cautious glances. At one point, he leaned in and whispered something to her. The girl's face paled and she clenched her hands into fists. Michael's breath quickened. That's not her father, he thought. Everything inside him screamed that this man wasn't who he appeared to be. Something was wrong. He began analyzing the situation, what he saw, what he knew. The man was too calm. If this were an ordinary family trip, the girl wouldn't be so frightened. And her gesture, it was unmistakable. It couldn't have been a coincidence. Suddenly, Michael remembered, a few months ago, he had seen a news report about a new signal for help that women and children were being taught to use on social media. This signal was specifically designed for those who couldn't openly ask for help, a subtle but clear gesture for those who knew what to look for. Adrenaline surged through his body. That's the gesture. This girl is clearly asking for help. Michael hated the feeling of helplessness. He was used to action, used to decisive and quick moves. But here, in this quiet diner among peaceful people, it was difficult to make the first move. He knew that if he was wrong, the consequences could be unpredictable. But what if the girl really was in danger? He took a deep breath and decided to confirm his suspicions first. Stepping out of the diner, he approached the same soda machine, pretending to just buy a drink. Once he was close to the girl, he leaned in and quietly asked, "Are you okay? Are you with this man?" His voice was soft but tense. The girl looked up at him. In her eyes, he saw fear, but she didn't answer. Instead, her hand made the same signal again. "Don't worry," Michael said, trying not to look at the man. "I'll help." He stepped aside, took out his phone, and walked a few feet away, pretending to text. But in reality, he was calling the police. "This is Winston," he whispered when the dispatcher answered. "I suspect a kidnapping. I'm at a roadside diner off Highway 67. A little girl, about 8 years old, with an elderly man. She's given the SOS signal. Please send someone urgently." His heart pounded as he returned to the diner, resuming his watch. Inside, he already knew he had done the right thing, but part of him still hoped this was a misunderstanding. Several agonizing minutes passed before he heard the sound of approaching sirens. Michael looked at the girl again. She caught his gaze, and in her eyes was a plea for help. When the patrol car pulled up to the diner, Michael saw the man tense up. He glanced around, his calm facade shattered. The police officers got out of the car, and one of them approached the man. "Excuse me, sir, may I have a word with you?" the officer asked politely but firmly. The man froze, his hand still resting on the girl's shoulder. "What's going on? We're just traveling," he replied, sounding irritated. "There's reason to believe this girl may be in danger," the officer replied. Hearing this, the girl paled and suddenly broke free from the man's grip. Running to Michael, she grabbed his hand, her small fingers trembling. The man, shocked by the sudden turn of events, began muttering excuses, but it no longer mattered. The police arrested him on the spot. Later at the police station, it was revealed that the man, Greg, the girl's stepfather, had been trying to take her to another state after Zoe's. The girl's mother lost a custody battle. He planned to flee with Zoe so her mother could regain control over her. The girl's father soon arrived at the station, and their reunion was one of relief and happiness. Michael watched from the sidelines, knowing that his intervention had saved the girl from a catastrophe. "Thank you." The girl's father approached him, gripping his hand. "If it weren't for you—" "No thanks needed," Michael replied. "I just did what I had to do." Michael sat, trying not to reveal his anxiety as he observed the man and the girl. The elderly man leaned toward her, said something, and the girl seemed to hold her breath for a moment before raising her hand again, making the gesture that once more stunned Michael. It was the clear SOS signal. Fingers curled, hand raised. He felt the rush of adrenaline. This wasn't an accident. She was asking for help. His heart raced. It was time to act. But how? If he approached directly and accused the man, it could provoke a sharp reaction. Michael didn't want to spook the potential kidnapper, especially if he could harm the girl. Leaving his coffee unfinished, he stood up and walked out of the diner, quickly assessing the situation. It was quiet and everything looked too normal, but that only heightened his sense of unease. This man was not her father. It was clear from everything. Michael paused by his truck, momentarily considering his actions. Michael knew that every minute counted. His mind raced with internal debates. Should he approach the girl immediately, or try to cautiously gather more information? What if I'm wrong? These thoughts swirled, but his instincts as a veteran who had faced more than one hot spot told him it was better to act now than regret later. He decided to be careful. Returning to the diner, Michael looked at the man and the girl. They were now standing at the edge of the parking lot, as if about to leave. There was no more time to wait. He took a few steps toward them, trying not to attract attention, and said, "Hi there. Sorry to bother you, but I noticed something strange. Is everything all right?" The man tensed slightly but quickly regained his composure. He turned to Michael with a grin, as if nothing was wrong. "Yeah, everything's fine. This is my daughter. We're just making a quick stop before we hit the road," the man said. But Michael detected a faint falseness in his voice. The girl glanced at Michael for a split second. Her eyes were full of fear, confirming his worst suspicions. "I see," Michael said, trying to stay calm. "It just seemed like you were worried about something." The man laughed, but it was a strained laugh. No, we're fine." He leaned down toward the girl, squeezing her shoulder tighter. "Right, sweetheart?" The girl didn't respond, but once again she made the same hand signal that Michael had seen multiple times. Michael felt anger boiling inside him. This girl was truly in trouble. "If I don't do something now, this could end badly," he thought. Without further hesitation, Michael took out his phone and quietly called 911. He reported what he had seen, giving them the location and describing the situation in detail. The seconds felt like hours, but after a few tense moments, he heard the faint sound of sirens in the distance.